What's up, and welcome to the Nothing But Net Worth podcast, where we have conversations with prominent coaches, athletic directors, and NIL athletes discussing critical topics around financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. My name is Hassan Thomas, former student athlete and current promoter of all things financial wellness. And today, we have one pair of twin football players who play defense at Dartmouth College. Lineman Josiah Green and linebacker Mr. Micah Green. How y'all doing, bro? How y'all doing?
Doing great. Great to be on this podcast with you today.
Yes, sir. Doing great. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir, man. I'm glad we were able to link up at BSA Summit. I remember we was all waiting for rides, and I'm like, hey, man, we might as well just get an Uber together and head over to USC.
Facts.
Yeah, man. So big shout out to networking, big shout out to attending conferences and getting around like-minded individuals. That's so very, very important, man. So I'm glad we were able to, meet there and then hop on this podcast, man. It's going to be a great one.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. And how we normally like to start off our show, we have a segment called the Financial Coin Toss. So I'm going to ask y'all a few either or questions just to see where your head's at, all right?
All right.
Okay.
All right, bet. Since I'm a big brother, we're gonna go with Big Bro first. Gotta put that respect on the name, man. So first question is for Michael. Would you rather invest into the stock market or into real estate?
I'd rather invest right now into the stock market because you can always invest into moats, so ETFs or S&P 500, things of that nature. Real estate is usually it does pretty stable, but in times of cyclical recession, it doesn't really seem to do so well. So I'd say stock market for sure.
I guess that's why you're the big brother. So what about you, Josiah? What you think? Would you rather invest stock market or real estate?
So since Mike is doing Tuck Bridge, it's a business development program here. He kind of knows a thing or two. Personally, I would have said real estate so I can start getting that under my belt, and I can eventually have that paying for me to live for free and then capitalize off of that.
Come on, getting that passive income coming in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I love it, man. So I'm going to give y'all an imaginary scenario. On my left hand right here, I have $1 million cash money. On the right hand, I have a perfect 850 credit score. Which one are you going with?
Oh, no brainer.
Okay.
To me, all right, the 850 credit score, I think, especially being a black man in America now, having an 850 credit score can get you in a lot more doors than what $1 million can do right now. I personally think that $1 million will come and go in someone's life, and it's very attainable for anybody if they really put their mind to it.
Yeah.
But people in this country start off with advantages that other people don't have, and by giving someone the opportunity to have a perfect credit score, that opens them up to a bunch of other things than what $1 million could do today.
Are you on the same wave, Micah, or what you thinking?
We say 850 credit score as well. Like that just gets you good in the eyes of investors and stakeholders. So definitely the credit score.
And if I had to ask y'all, just for the folks who don't really know, what are some of those things that 850 credit score would allow you to do?
Yeah. So a big one is taking out a huge loan for an LLC or a privately owned business. If you have $1 million, you have to put it into an account, and because of inflation, the money declines over time. If you have an 850 credit score, you can get loans on what the current rate of inflation is, and you'll have that from the bank. So you have mortgage-backed securities, you'll have the financial support from the bank itself, and that allows you to go and do any venture you want without even having the money, you know what I'm saying, $1 million that you think you would need.
100%.
You pretty much answered the question.
and then for simpler terms for our young folks, basically you would be able to open up your own business. Right. You would be able to also be able to get your own home for much less cheaper than you would if you had a low credit score or no credit. You would have to pay a higher mortgage. Your interest rate would be much higher. So basically, all the adult things that we want to do, when we're in college and then when we graduate, by having that higher credit score, it will be much easier to do those things. So
for sure,
y'all are 100% on the right wave, man. So this question is for both of y'all. Whoever wants to answer it first, go ahead, no worries. So whenever I'm thinking about, because I want to dive back into, your specific journeys as y'all were coming up playing ball, because I feel like with every athlete, with every entrepreneur, there's a specific turning point, a specific defining moment in their life where you're like, okay, I can really take this thing to the next level. So let's go back to high school for y'all, or it could have been middle school earlier. Like, what was that defining moment in your lives where you knew, okay, I can play football in college?
Yeah, I can start. I'd say for me, probably the defining moment was my junior year of high school.
Okay.
My high school hadn't been necessarily good in the last 5 or 6 years for
Mm-hmm.
football specifically. We were a basketball powerhouse. I mean, we're from Indianapolis. The EYBL is there every year. March Madness is always there. So just like we're so used to doing AAU tournaments and having a bunch of basketball around us.
Gotcha.
Our school is a very big public school, but in terms of football, it wasn't really seen as a powerhouse. So we were rivals with this really, really big school, Carmel, in Carmel, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, it was like we were both at the time undefeated, and they'd almost always win the state championships.
Uh,
So they had a Purdue commit at running back, and I mean I play linebacker, so like you already know
Fact.
what's going on. That game we were up by 4 points or 4 or 5 points. I remember it was less than one score, and it was third down, and he came on like an outside zone to my side and just like sticked him bad. Yeah, and then right
Whole
from that
crowd
moment,
went crazy, wasn't it?
yeah, she was crazy. And
uh,
from there, I knew I was like, yeah, I know I can play in college. Like, it doesn't matter like
so if I'm
how
sticking
small
him
whatever
like
I
that, he
am.
ranked T and all that. If I'm sticking him like that, I
Facts.
could do it at the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Okay. Okay. What about you, Josiah? Did you have a turning point moment in high school, something of that nature?
I'd say for me, like I made a lot of plays in high school. I went against a lot of guys who played in the SEC Big Ten. They're all like huge corn-fed guys,
Yeah.
but I feel like I never really had a problem like going against anybody. I'd say a defining moment wasn't necessarily on the field because I feel like that came more natural. I felt like it was during my first college visit, well, my first and only college visit because I was during COVID.
Yeah.
So we went to Indiana State in Terre Haute and we like got our measurements, like toured the whole facility, and then at the end, the coach like took me in his office and he shook my hand. He was like, "We want to offer you a scholarship."
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I'm like thinking, like, wow, like I really don't have to pay for college.
Yeah.
Like the football is actually a way where I can go get an education for free and then take this to
Mm-hmm.
the next level. So after
Using
that
that.
point, like just offer after offer after offer just rolled in,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean I just kept working, but it was really that initial point where he like the coach looked at me, shook my hand, and was like, we want you as a player here." I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can actually do this at a higher level.
Wow. So you really realize, okay, my sport can be that vehicle to take me to be successful in athletics and academics and the your communication life. Now you're exposed to more people, you're talking to more people. So that's huge, man. Just
Yeah, for
realizing
sure.
that, man, my sport can take me to that next level. That's amazing. And I want to stay, like you even mentioned, that recruiting process. You mentioned, getting that. Was that the first scholarship, Indiana State?
The first scholarship.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of stay right there. Talk about, the recruiting process for you all. Talk about the offers and then also talk about how you were able to narrow down to Dartmouth. Because, like, was there ever a time where y'all weren't going to be going to the same school? Like, kind of talk about that process.
Yeah, I can go first on this. So the recruiting process for us was different because it was during COVID. So the Indiana State visit was the first and only visit. Everything went virtual after. There was a lot of phone calls and just
Oh,
like
wow.
text messages. But after Indiana State, like I started to get schools like more like FCS schools like Eastern Illinois, like
Mm-hmm.
Western Illinois, a bunch of schools like that until I got the Air Force. So I'm like, all right, Air
Okay.
Force is like FBS program. I know it's a military academy, but it's still like a big football.
Fact.
And then
They say they still
like
in NC. Yes, sir.
yeah. So as that keeps as recruiting picks up, like we're getting closer to season, and then or during season I get a call from Wake Forest, and then
Mm-hmm.
Wake Forest is like, "Oh yeah, we're waiting on you. We want to see more film. Like you're not really our ideal guy, so we want to give you a preferred walk on." And I'm like, all right, I have 20 other schools recruit me that I got offers from that want to pay for my college. Like, I don't have the money to actually pay for a walk on spot at Wake Forest. So, like, I'm here making a decision whether I want to go to Wake Forest, be a walk on. The other way I narrowed it down was the Ivy League.
Yeah.
I really want the best mix of academics and athletics. So for me, I thought it would be ACC or Ivy League, because in the ACC you still have Duke, like Wake Forest, schools like that, Virginia. But I knew I wanted like the best mix, so I narrowed it down to military institutions, half the Ivy League, and then that one walk-on spot. And so I realized, as I had calls with coaches, you can kind of tell what their intentions are, like at what times they call you, how often they call you, whether they're pressuring you to make a decision fast. And I felt like with Dartmouth, at least like my coach, Coach Brooks, he was very like respectful of what I wanted to do. He was like, he would just communicate and he would keep it real all the time. Like, he's the same person, whether he's mad, happy, no matter what, like he's going to keep it real. And that's what I wanted going into college. I don't want someone who's going to tell me all these lies and BS me and getting me to go to their school.
Get there, something.
That's what I'm saying. So he's the biggest reason why I came to Dartmouth, because I knew I wanted not only like someone like that as a mentor, but I wanted a coach like that so he could actually push me to be the best I could reach. I'd say.
Okay, so the staff, the academics, the mix of academics and athletics, the actual staff that recruited you were some of the biggest factors, you would say, to narrowing that down, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, bet. What about for you, Micah? Did you have a similar experience? What was that process for you? How did you narrow it down to Dartmouth?
Yeah, so I actually did have a very similar experience to Josiah, and it was funny because right before we started the whole recruiting process, our head coach told us, "Hey, Micah, I don't want you telling any college coach that you and Josiah are going to go to their school together. Like it can't be a package deal. Coaches don't like that. So
Really?
whoever chooses you chooses you. Whoever chooses him chooses him. But you really just got to market yourself and not really rely on each other." And
Gotcha.
it just so happened like the 17 offers after that were all the exact same schools that both like wanted both of us. So I don't know what he was talking about, but I also ended up getting Air Force, and that was pretty big because me and Josiah's grandfather was in the Air Force for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
He served in Vietnam. He was a helicopter refueler. So we had visited there before, and I love the campus. A lot of our families in Colorado Springs, and it just seemed like an amazing place to be. The only downside was we grew up in like a pretty strict household, and going to the Air Force, we knew we'd have to do daily inspections for our suits, our rooms. We'd have to do rifle training. We'd have to shave our hair and just do all that. And I'm like, man, I trust myself to be like a responsible adult. Like I'm not gonna put myself through something like that again. So that's
we've
kind
been
of
strict for 18 years. Now it's time to let our hair down a little bit.
Facts. Because like we know like we're responsible. We trust ourselves. So we're just like that's when I realized like, hey, I might start considering more Ivy League schools than Air Force. And then I did not get a Wake Forest preferred walk on, but I got Stanford like very late in my recruiting process. And that was also a walk on spot. But for those of you guys who don't know, Dartmouth and Stanford are $100,000 a year, and they're trying to give me like 20,000. I'm like, I'm not gonna come $80,000 out of my pocket. I don't even have that much money.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So I ended up. That's when I started talking to the Ivy League schools and starting to go that route. And it was really between Columbia and Dartmouth were like my top two. And the sole reason for going to Dartmouth was Coach Stevens, our coach who just recently passed away. He was
coach?
like,
oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, our head coach. It's all good. He passed away last year due to it was kind of a weird, like a crazy incident. But that was like right before last season, and there's a whole nother story like to go with that. It's crazy, but he was the main reason that I came here because I wanted to do engineering, and no other coach said you can play football at a high level and get your degree in an accelerated program. And here I am getting my bachelor's of engineering in 4 years when it usually takes 5.
Wild balling on the field, man. That's amazing, man. And I want to dive in, to the reason we're on this show, man. Talking about NIL, talking about name, image, and likeness. So for y'all being at Dartmouth, what does NIL look like?
All right, you got it.
Yeah.
Not the laughter's coming on. Talk
NIL
to
is Yeah, NIL is very distant here, just in general. Like
it.
the Ivy League has been very adamant about keeping its distance from NIL and keeping us away from pay to play, stipends, Austin funds, all things of that nature. They have let us use our name, image, and likeness, like for commercials, TikToks, like things of that nature, getting free products. But we're very far removed from the bigger schools and the way they currently do NIL. So I'd say for here, it's definitely more like get your foot in the door, get a free product, and do a couple Instagram reels. But that's like the extent.
So why do you think they don't push it as much? Because y'all have the followings, y'all have the fans in the stands, y'all have the athletes. Why do you think they're not pushing it as much as some of the other schools?
I think it's really an Ivy League thing. Like the Ivy League wants to be known for academics. They adamantly don't want to be not necessarily known for athletics, but they want academics to trump that like 100 times. So I think pushing like the Austin funds, pushing pay to play or any type of stipend is like almost directly against what their mission is as a conference. And it's more so like what Dartmouth tries to say is that they give NIL through internship opportunities, or they give you like that through job networking or whatever it is, like setting up for the future. They're not trying to give you all this money right now. Actually, in fact, we get no money. We don't get anything. So like it's NIL is non-existent here. People can do this and that here and there, but if you make over a certain amount, like this is all need-based money that can come out of your financial aid. So it's like it's insane that, but it's true. So there's a certain limit on what you can do and what you can't do, just because the financial aid system, the goals and missions for the Ivy League, and then just like the image they want to maintain.
So is it not encouraged or is it prohibited? Like if you really go out there and become this big NIL star, like the Ivy League, Dartmouth is gonna have, I don't want to say a problem, but you're gonna get a little bit of a talking to if you're supremely focused on that NIL piece, or is it? So that's my question. Is it not encouraged, or is it actually prohibited?
So it's not prohibited. It's just not really encouraged. Like we've had Olympians in the past who even have trouble trying to get NIL just because they're more focused on their sport here and their academics, and that's just how the culture is. Like NIL is not big here because people really lean into the alumni network and just whatever sport they're playing and whatever major that they're doing. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the Ivy League is trying to like cap. Well, let me put it this way. They're definitely not encouraging people to do NIL, but there have been some key outliers. Like I met a women's basketball player from Harvard this past spring, and she got an award at the BSA summit for her contributions to NIL. I mean, she's made a lot of money through her deals, but again, she's capped on how much she can make. So in the Ivy League, it's a heavy focus on academics, but it's not necessarily like you're barred from getting any NIL opportunity.
So what has it looked like? Has it been the local businesses around Dartmouth? Has it been just companies hitting you up and it's like, hey, post this? What does anything NIL related look like right now? And not even just for football, maybe for any Olympic sports, maybe for women's basketball. You said any basketball. Just what does NIL generally look like from what you've experienced?
Up here. Yeah, I'd say like the biggest thing is really TikToks and Instagram Reels. And then if people don't do that, then it's like a lot of coaching opportunities. We're in the Upper Valley and there's a lot of kids like who don't really have access to good quality athletic trainers. So a lot of times we act as like trainers and we'll teach kids football for a little bit of money. And I've seen a lot of basketball players who do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say any local businesses really like try to use athletes to market whatever they're trying to market. And there was a platform called Mogul that like not just Ivy League athletes use, but a lot of athletes use. That's where a lot of our athletes or some of our athletes get just like here and there deals. But it's not big. And I also feel like you kind of have to have like a certain status on the field to be able to even do that. Because since it's an Ivy League college, like people don't really care about athletics that much. It's not like you're an Alabama football player, but you have to be like one of the players that people recognize on this team to even probably get a shot at making any type of money.
Got you. So just in the scope of athletics, how do you feel NIL has changed collegiate sports? Or do you feel like it's changed it? What's your just overall thoughts, pros and cons of NIL in general?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. Pros is definitely like getting your name out there, getting exposure, and building your personal brand. I mean, that's huge. A lot of people weren't able to do that in the past. So that's been probably the biggest pro, I'd say.
For sure.
Cons is that you're giving certain kids a lot of money and not necessarily giving them financial advisors or the education they need to like retain that. And it's a big problem. Like colleges spend millions of dollars on big players, and if that individual doesn't know how to keep their money, like what good will they do to society when they graduate? You know what I'm saying? Like it's about their personal development, which I agree, like that's important, but it's also how much you can contribute as an individual once you're done with your sport or once you're done with your college. So I think that's the biggest piece that's missing is like dedicated, individualized financial education.
Got you. What about you, Josiah? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, definitely to touch on that point. I think that giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to like even like professional sports rookies is like, all right, they're already young, but now you're giving them to people fresh out of high school. So it's like, to touch on Micah's point, there really needs to be a push for financial literacy classes or mentors or educators so that people can actually keep the money that they're making. Like these are young kids getting thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to spend it. They're going to blow it. Like what good is that? What good is going to come out of that? That's unsustainable. That's an unsustainable business model.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where this is going to end up being in a few years, but that's just too much money given out to people that are blowing it. That like how is that going to circulate back? How is that going to be sustainable? So I think
100%.
that finding some way to incorporate that financial literacy is very, very, very beneficial.
Yeah, man. Think about it. You know, we're giving, let's just say 20%, 25% of these athletes are getting the big brand deals, and then only 2%, 3% maybe are going to make it to the professional level through all sports. So what about that, you know, that 17%, 16% of those athletes that you gave money to that didn't make it pro? You know, they spent, without that proper financial education, as y'all mentioned, they've went through these 4 years and probably have blown that money. Because I couldn't imagine being 20 years old, getting 20K a month, getting 10K a month. Not just a one-time stipend. I feel like if I was in college, I got a one-time stipend of 20K. Okay, now in my head, I'm like, this is my one time getting it. I'm going to have to make it stretch. But if I'm getting 20K a month, I'm like, shoot, I can blow the 20K because I'll be getting another one next month. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'd say that's the biggest piece. Like if you're getting that much money, you got to be responsible, or at least like be on a path to understanding what to do with that. Like the whole point of NIL, the reason why the NCAA approved it and why we push it so much is because one, athletes have worked hard and they benefit their institutions by raising money for their institutions. When you get a form of compensation for that, you need to learn how to invest it. Like there's a difference between investing and spending, and sometimes saving is not always investing. So learning how to spend it wisely, like spend it on a quality asset, that's like the biggest point. That's the whole point of growing up and contributing to society. So that's what I'd say, is just becoming more financially literate.
Yeah, bro. And what I tell the students that I be teaching is it's just changing the order that because people that look like us, we get paid on Friday, we get a haircut, we go to the mall, we go out to eat, we go see a movie, we go to a party, and then by Sunday, all the money's gone. So literally by changing the order, instead of getting paid and then spending directly, take 10% for savings. Take 20 or 10%, just start small. Take another 10% for investing. And then take one more, another 10%. So 30% total, 10% for saving, 10% for investing, and 10% for a just in case fund, because it's not a matter of if something unexpected will happen. It's more of when something unexpected will happen. So if you have that money to fall back on, then you're good. Final question for my guys here, man. I want to know what's next for the Green brothers. Final question. What's next for you all?
Yeah, I'd say next is just trying to get that third Ivy League championship. I mean, that's the goal we've been working towards for our whole college career. So now it's the time to do it. So it's really the time to just put in work and keep your head down.
Execute it. Yes, sir. What about you, Josiah?
Yeah, exactly. I said the same thing. We definitely have the guys to do it. We have the plan. Now you just got to execute. So we've been working hard for so long, and this one's personal. So I think we definitely. I don't want to put it out there, but a big season is ahead of us.
Hey man, speak on it in faith, man. Speak on it in faith. I love it, guys. Thank y'all so much for joining the show. Please let them know where they can reach you, how they can contact you on social media and all that. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, you can contact me, or my Instagram is greenery.j, greenery.j. Twitter, the J Greenery. Follow me, DM me, whatever.
Yeah, same for me. My Instagram is m._greenery. So kind of just reverse to Josiah. I'm not on Twitter much, but I'm on Instagram, just one DM away. If you guys have any questions regarding education, athletics, if you guys want to learn more about the Ivy League, what it's like to be here, or just about public speaking in general and student organizations, I'm definitely free to just reach out and talk to you guys as well. So thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank y'all so much for joining the show. Our listeners, thank y'all. And y'all already know, if you're looking to be educated, motivated, and inspired to not only stay in the game, but to change it, the Nothing But Net Worth podcast is for you. See y'all next week.
But